I hate this song. Let's go outside. Lucy followed Marnie out of the school auditorium. Marnie hated every song, and Lucy creaked back and forth on her gold shoes, watching the dark red ring of lipstick on the filter of Marnie's cigarette. Marnie hunched down to relight, and Lucy saw the tender yellow roots at her part, pushing away the dyed dark hair. "I'm not seeing Daniel," Marnie said, more grumpy than triumphant. "Well, then who'd Stephen come with?" Lucy asked, meaner than she should have been. "Shut up," Marnie said, because she had her disappointments too. Lucy did shut up for a while, watching the smoke climb and dissipate. She thought of Daniel's diploma left on the table along the wall of the gymnasium, and it felt like a rebuke to her. He really wasn't going to come, huh? He really didn't care for her. Lucy felt as though her makeup was stiffening on her face. She wanted to wash it off. She looked down at her dress, which cost her an entire semester of Saturdays working at the bagel shop. What if she'd never saw him again? The thought gave her an almost panicked feeling. This could not be all there was. What was that? Marnie turned her head abruptly. Lucy heard it too. There was shouting inside the school, and then a scream. You hear plenty of screams in the vicinity of a high school party, but this was one that made you stop. Marnie stood with a look of surprise Lucy rarely caught on her face. People were piling up at the main doors, and you could hear the shouting. Lucy startled at the sound of glass shattering. Something was really wrong. Who do you think of when glass is breaking and people are screaming real screams? That was a telling thing. Marnie was right there, and her mother was home, so Lucy thought of Daniel. What if he was in there somewhere? The crowd was piling up thick and wild at the main doors, and she needed to know what was going on. She went in through the side door. The hallway was dark, so she ran towards the shouting. She stopped as she intersected with the senior hallway. She heard more glass breaking in the distance. She saw dark streaks on the floor and instinctively knew what it was. More blood pooled and rolled down the senior hallway, and she would have thought, she observed numbly, that the floor was flat. She took a few steps and froze. Somebody, a boy, was lying there mostly in the dark, and everyone else was running away. It was his blood that was creeping down the hall. "What is going on?" she shouted after them. She felt for her cell phone in her bag with shaking hands. By the time she'd opened it, she'd heard the sirens, and there were many of them, all at once. Somebody grabbed her arm and pulled at her, but she shook him off. The blood crept toward the toe of her gold shoe. Somebody stepped on it and ran away, making shoe prints on the linoleum, and that just seemed wrong. She made her way toward the body on the ground, trying not to walk in his blood. She leaned down to see his face. It was a boy in the junior class, a face that she recognized but didn't know. She crouched beside him and touched his arm. He was groaning with each breath. He was alive, at least. "Are you all right?" It seemed obvious he wasn't. "Help is coming," she assured him weakly. Suddenly, she heard an explosion of shouting and footsteps coming towards her as the police arrived. They were yelling at everybody. They blocked the doors and told everybody to calm down, though they themselves were not calm. "Is there an ambulance?" she said. Not loud enough, so she said it again. She hadn't realized she was crying. 2 policemen rushed to the boy, and she stepped back. There was another eruption of shouting into radios. They made way for the EMS guys to get through. "Is he okay?" she asked, too quietly to make any difference. She backed up farther. She couldn't see anything anymore. At that moment, a policewoman pulled at her roughly. "You're not going anywhere," she commanded, even though Lucy wasn't going anywhere. She directed her down the science hall and pointed to a door on the right. "Go in there and stay until we can get a detective in to talk to you. Don't move, do you hear me?" She pushed open the door to the chemistry lab where she had done experiments on the Bunsen burners in 10th grade. Though the windows she saw were all red from the lights of the police cars, she waded through the dark chairs and tables to see out. There were probably 10 police cars parked at odd angles on the patches of grass at the back of school where they spent free periods in good weather. When the lights flashed over it, She could see how the tires had chewed up the grass, and that seemed like a further dire thing. She made her way to the classroom sink more by memory than sight. She could have found the light switch, but she didn't feel like exposing herself to all the people bustling outside the windows. She turned on the faucet and bent forward, washing away makeup and tears. She dried her face with a stiff brown paper bag. Her violets drooped. She thought the room was empty until she turned around and saw the figure sitting at a desk in the corner, and it scared her. She walked closer, trying to adjust her eyes to the darkness. "Who is that?" she asked in a voice just above a whisper. "Daniel?" She stopped. The red glow filled in parts of her face. "Sophia," he said. She came closer so he could see who she was. "No, it's Lucy." Her voice shook a little. There was a boy bleeding in the hallway, and she felt a gathering disappointment that he still didn't know her. "Come sit down." He wore a stoic expression, a look of resignation as if he would rather she were Sophia. She skimmed along the edge of the room, picking over chairs and jackets and bags kids had stowed there. Her dress felt insubstantial for this kind of night. He was sitting back against the wall in one of those desk-chair combinations, with his feet crossed as though she was waiting for something.